So in business, they have a principle that's really common. You've probably heard it, and it goes like this: price, quality, speed, you can only have two. Well, I've come up with something that I believe applies to us physically, and I'm calling it the triangle of energy. Let's check it out. The triangle of energy is also 3 items, and you can only have 2. And those items are intensity, frequency, and volume. Let's look at what those mean. Intensity is how hard you hammer in any given training session. If you push hard, you're maxing your heart rate out, that's high intensity. If you're taking it easy, that's low intensity. Frequency is how often you train. If you're training every day or even multiple times a day, that's very high frequency. If you train once a week, that's low frequency. Volume has to do with your work capacity. How much work did you produce in that training session? What was the duration of that particular training session? So volume is work capacity, frequency is how often you train, and intensity is how hard you hammer. Let's say when you train, you like to hammer really hard. You leave it all on the mat. And you also spar every single round. Or when you go to the gym, you do a lot of sets and you hammer really hard. So you've got intensity and you've got volume. Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to have high frequency. You're not going to be able to do that every day. And this is especially true as you get older. Maybe if you're 20 and you're in killer shape, you can have all 3. But once you're 30, 35, 40, 50, for sure, there is simply no way to have high intensity, high volume, and high frequency. You will break yourself down. You'll get injured. You'll get hurt. You're not going to be able to train like that. Conversely, you might like to train every day, that's high frequency, and when you go to class, you do every repetition, you spar every single round. So you've got high frequency and you've got high volume. Your intensity is going to have to be very, very low. There's simply no way for your body to be able to take high frequency, high volume, and add to that high intensity. So this is all subjective. What is high volume for you? What is high frequency for you? What is high intensity for you might be different for another individual. So you need to come up with what it means to you to have high frequency, have high volume, and have high intensity. Now, let me give you an example from my own training on how I apply the triangle of energy, starting with my personal fitness goals. My goal is a high frequency of training. And some of that is because I teach jiu-jitsu 5 nights a week, and it's so fun to roll that usually when I'm in class teaching, I end up rolling. So I roll 4 or 5 nights a week. In addition to that, I usually try to do a couple strength and conditioning sessions per week. I'll do some kettlebells. When the weather gets nice, I might add a couple bike rides in there or do something else. So it's usually 2 to 4 fitness training sessions per week. Because I train so frequently, it means that I have to keep the intensity low, and I even have to keep the volume under control. I said you can only have 2 things, but the reality is, as you get older, you're gonna have to finesse that a little bit. And for me to do 7 to 10 training sessions per week means I can only have moderate volume. So what is moderate volume? Well, that means I'm only sparring maybe 6 rounds per night. 5 or 6, maybe 7 if I'm feeling good that night. It also means that when I'm swinging a kettlebell or doing some kind of fitness, I'm only doing 2 or 3 sets of any one thing. I'm not hammering real hard. I keep the volume under control. So it's high frequency, medium volume, and I need to keep the intensity relatively low. For me, that means I keep my heart rate 70-75% of my max. Of course, there's always red lines when you train jiu-jitsu. Sometimes those windows of opportunity open and you have to put the pedal down to get to that next position and your heart rate maxes out. So there's always going to be those moments, But generally, I try to keep my heart rate around 70% of my max, keep the volume under control so that I can put in a high frequency of training. We have to train smart, especially as we get older. And what I've discovered is that a high frequency of training produces, over time, much greater results than training a couple times a week, but really hammering intensely. Okay, so I hope that helps you in your own training, at least to begin to conceptualize how you should be training. If you like the kind of content we're producing, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It's fun to get that dopamine hit when I see new subscribers. And leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know how you program your own training. Maybe this information is useful to you and I'd love to hear about it.